This is the College Football Connection Podcast with Alvin, Reid, Bradford, Bruns, and Marty Jenkins on 101 ESPN.
Conditions are sweltering in Como in the Lou, and my man Alvin Reid is definitely heating up with those picks across the land. Alvin, how's it going, my friend? Bradford, Bruns. Guys, we are back for the latest edition of the College Football Connection, only on 101 ESPN, that YouTube channel, plus 101ESPN.com. Alvin, believe it or not, we're talking about segueing into mid-September, but it certainly doesn't feel that way outside.
Oh, man, it doesn't feel like that. I checked the weather on all the games. Notre Dame, we'll talk about them later. They've got decent weather. Everybody else is hot. So, I mean, everybody's going to have to deal with the conditions a little bit, and that includes, Clemson and Georgia Tech
and
Atlanta.
Be right.
Bobby Dodd Stadium, baby.
We had that respite for a couple of weeks, it appeared, and now, the summer has returned in a manner of speaking.
You better be in shape and hydrate.
Be in shape and be ready to go earlier than anticipated. We'll talk about that with respect to Memorial Stadium tomorrow,
yes.
Mizzou and Louisiana, among a six-pack of picks for you here on this occasion as we charge headfirst into week number 3 officially in the college football campaign. Alvin, another nice week for you, my friend. Nice weekend. And first and foremost, I genuinely hope it was a great birthday celebration as well, in spite of the final at Faroe.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I went out at the senior golf tournament for the first half of the day.
Love it.
And, the game had started, and I was kind of following it on my phone, but I watched most of it. And based on how my picks, the game went as I thought. Of course, I would be tortured in this game. And when you're at 28-24 and you score the touchdown, I said this. I said, you got to stop them, and you got to score again. And you got to get up by 11, and hopefully then, they'd have to go for 2 and kick a field goal to get to catch you. How many possessions are left in the game? You didn't do that. And then, the touchdown at the end, if nothing else, it made me correct on my, Missouri covering
Bingo.
Pick as well as the over. I think Missouri is a very good team. And that also leads me to believe that I think KU is better than I thought they were.
That's right. Hey,
so I've shared with folks out the way, message boards. I said, I'm glad we're off this week. Disappointing, but let me wallow in it. You guys do the film, learn your lessons, come out and beat West Virginia next week.
That's right. I'm not going to say that a hush fell over the capacity crowd after that first quarter, but there were some reservations after KU had jumped out to the 21-6 edge, and down the stretch, we'll see exactly what happens for both of those particular squads. As you had referenced, Alvin, on the heels of losing 42-31, KU idle this particular weekend. Missouri, however, in action as promised, and that's where we will begin in this instance. 12 o'clock now, so moved up from that originally scheduled kickoff time of 3 p.m.
Yes.
in mid-Missouri. Weather conditions, scorching to say the least. Expected to be still in the low 90s now by that revised kickoff time. And Louisiana welcoming the Ragin' Cajuns to town. Missouri, so far, so good, especially on the running side of the ledger, Alvin. And even though it was interesting last weekend following that result against KU, to hear Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach, behind the podium, kind of taking some people actually in the room there, presser style, to task about the performance of his O-line. Now, say what you will about some of the possible bluster, bravado, undertones there, just keeping his guys honest and accountable. But let me tell you, when you're able to hold on to the football for more than 40 minutes, say what you will about Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts, carving out their own respective spaces. But that tells me that you were able to effectively manhandle, at times at least, at the point of attack, and that is precisely what you would anticipate, what you would hope if you're the Missouri coaching staff heading into this tilt as well. Louisiana just a year ago obviously won 10 games in the Sun Belt Conference, but here, an underdog to the tune of 27.5, that over-under at 47.5. And let me just tell you here straight up, buddy, I'm not going to make that mistake twice as far as going with the under. My goodness, that was arguably the most ill-fated choice I have made in the history of this program. I'm not going back there. but I volley it over to you at first.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you something, my friend. I don't know if Missouri's going to win by 27 points, 17 points, or 47 points. I honestly don't know. Missouri is going to beat Louisiana. What the difference in the score is, I can't put a finger on. Now, you got Columbia coming to town a week from Saturday.
That's right.
You've got a change in that really doesn't really, I don't think, really matter. But, you have a change in the game time. Missouri had to play 60 minutes of football.
Yeah, it did.
Last week. And they very deserving win, but they had to play 4 quarters. They had to play a real game. And not to say that Louisiana's not a real team, but I just don't have my finger on the pulse by how many that Missouri is going to win by. So I'm going to leave a direct pick alone on this, our first game that we discuss about, but I am so on the over.
Isn't that a low number
That's
to you?
a low number to me.
That seems low.
Right, because I think Missouri's defense gave up points. And that's why I'm saying, maybe KU's a little bit better than I thought they were. Because KU had 11 yards rushing. What, huh? Right, and they're a much better rushing team than that, but they still scored points. And they scored points when they drove for the touchdown to take the lead as we're just about to enter into the fourth quarter. That means you're in a ball game. You've been able to figure some things out. So how good is Missouri's defense? Good enough to hold down Louisiana. But I think with a number that low, you're saying Missouri's going to just only give up a touchdown or 10 points to Louisiana. And I'm not necessarily feeling that. So I'm definitely playing the over.
Here is the fly in the ointment, though, if you're a supporter of Louisiana. The fact that now you no longer have the man who was entrusted with taking over the job at quarterback instead due to a season-ending injury. You're going to hear a lot about ailments at that position as we move along on the CFC. You're entrusting a true freshman at the helm. And this is an offensive attack, Alvin, that to wit, you trounced McNeese State. Granted, McNeese State a week ago. But you're averaging a mere 85 yards through the air. Love running the football. Dual threats there coming out of the backfield. At the same time, this defense has only permitted 12 points per contest. But I don't envision a scenario in which, especially after the O-line basically called out to some extent, doesn't manhandle right there at the point of attack, line of scrimmage, and be a consistent group, a collective cast of road graders. This, to me, it feels like, with all due respect, your classic scenario, stat padding game, both sides of the football, and that D-line as well. Basically, hey, Zion Young and company, pin those ears back and get after it because you are licking your chops about the prospect of rushing and penetrating into that backfield, especially if the O-line isn't very sound. So I really like Mizzou to the tune of, quite honestly, 30-plus point victory here. I come in way on that overside as well. And there is no fear here, no reservations whatsoever about looking ahead to South Carolina, the other Columbia, the next Saturday.
Well, kids are kids and coaches are coaches, and it could happen. And so that's why Missouri wins. Missouri wins handily, but Missouri could be up 28 points in the fourth quarter, and Louisiana score a touchdown.
Sure.
And the 42-21 or 35-14. Louisiana's going to try to run the ball. If they have any success, that means that they're going to run the clock. They may not score very many points, but if they can total first downs, that keeps Missouri off the field. And if you keep Missouri off the field, you can't score. On offense if you're not out there. So I'm with you in that I think Missouri is not going to look past Louisiana. I just don't know that they cover that 20. That's a high number to me. That's really 4 touchdowns.
Daniel Beal, a young man, try to hand it off as much as you can, but I'm fearing that it won't last on the side of the Raging Cajuns. I will be hydrating accordingly. I will tell you there.
All right.
That much out in mid-Missouri. But as we move along from one offense that has been of the high-octane variety in MU, Bo Prabula at the controls so far in 2025. Another one that's been pretty suspect on the ACC side, and a much ballyhooed attack at that, entering the campaign, no doubt about it. Cade Klubnik had massive expectations, as did the program overall. And I'm wondering, Dabo, hey, what exactly happened, first of all, half number 2 versus LSU, and then in particular last weekend versus Troy? To have that sort of uninspiring, quite frankly, performance, Alvin, and then to go head-to-head this coming week against a more than upstart Georgia Tech squad. So this one, an 11 o'clock kickoff we're talking about between Clemson and Georgia Tech. Right now, those Tigers only favored by 2.5. So that one has tumbled just a tad. Over-under figure here of 51.5. And irrespective of what Clemson has or has not done offensively, you know the MO for Georgia Tech. We want to run that football, and win necessary as well. Haynes King, off of the injury report, he has been outstanding in the early going, Alvin.
Yes, and if he is healthy, then I'm going to be much more confident in my pick, which is Georgia Tech to cover the 2.5. I was going to take Georgia Tech when the spread was 3.5. I think Las Vegas found out I was on Georgia Tech, so they knocked it down a point. But I'm still going to stick with them because they can run the ball. You know, when that ball got batted up in the air, kid intercepts it, scores a touchdown for Troy, and it's, 16-0 going in about halftime.
What in the world?
Well, I think Clemson literally had that, come to Jesus moment. It's like, you all, if we lose this football game, college football playoff, may as well oh, no, it's not happening. Right. We've blown it. I think even if we if they ran the table in the ACC, they would still probably have a chance. But they would literally have to run the table in the ACC.
Which now looks decidedly tougher for the record.
Right, exactly. And Troy's a good football team, don't get me wrong, but I think Clemson really said we have to win the second half. We have to beat them. And when it was all said and done, that was still not a very impressive performance by Clemson.
No.
So this is a tough go. You've had 2 home games. You've been beaten at 6 quarters. All right.
That's a fact.
That's a fact. LSU got you for 4, and even though you had the lead in that game, LSU looked decidedly better than you. And then the first half against Troy. Now, granted, maybe you weren't fired up. You're still playing last week's game. But I'm telling you, you haven't looked good for 6 quarters. You didn't look that great in the 2 quarters that you got over on Troy. I like Georgia Tech. I like the under, though, on that 51.5.
Yeah, that one is leaving me. It has me in stitches right now as far as the over-under figure. Here's what we know about Clemson. Certainly a lack of fluidity on offense, and then it hasn't exactly been that much better on the other side of the football, too. Just 75th as far as all FBS teams are concerned right now in total defense. And going back to the offense for a second, this hasn't been an attack that by any means whatsoever has held on to the football only 24 minutes per game. What exactly are you doing there? Georgia Tech, conversely, my goodness, racking up more than 571 yards per game. But here is a potential quandary. I know you're playing, obviously, at Bobby Dodd Stadium. And by the same token, if Georgia Tech can't clean it up when you're talking about flags, for goodness gracious. Georgia Tech, actually, Alvin, believe it or not, averaging 79.5 penalty yards per contest.
Drive killers.
The worst in the nation.
They had 3 straight turnovers in the game against Colorado to start the game.
Yes.
Now that may be more of an editorial comment on Colorado than Georgia Tech, but you cough it up 3 times to start the game. Then you win the game on the road. So I'll give them that because that's how they play. We're going to keep running this rock. All right. And I think that's what Clemson has to prepare for. That look, if we don't put them away early, but they're going to grind on us.
Yeah,
they're going to push on us. They're going to play that Georgia Tech style football, and they're fired up down there. Apparently, it's all white, and just they're really fired up about this game and the prospect of beating a Clemson, especially the Clemson that was ranked in the top 10, when the season began. So that, they've been in preparation to really make a statement, and I think they do make a statement. And I think Clemson will find itself in a situation of where do we go from here?
If this one, we're still at 3.5, I kid you not, it does sway me a bit. Having moved down to 2.5, and something just tells me Klubnik is going to come up big time in this setting. I think that he makes some throws down the stretch that ultimately prove to be the difference. Not saying that King can't have a nice game, but a turnover here or there.
Yeah.
Clemson is finally opportunistic on defense and plays as it should. This should be a game in which it is able to prevail by a touchdown or so. Although these offenses, and especially Georgia Tech, my goodness, what we've seen so far, I'm actually staying away from the over-under, especially since we've witnessed a bit of movement along those lines. So I will take Clemson straight up and minus the 2.5, but I'm staying away from the low 50s.
Okay, and you had mentioned how it moved. This opened at 50.5.
Yeah.
Then it went to 52.5. Then it reversed, came back down to 51.5. Now, some of that is money. Some of that is where the wagering is going. And some of that is Haynes King. Is he 100%? Apparently, he's good to go. But it's like, I know that those numbers are close, but then, what we're talking about here, that's not close. 50.5 to 52.5. It's like, what? Huh? And then you knock down from 3.5 to 2.5, that's Georgia. That's some people playing on Georgia Tech.
That's right.
I was kidding about just me. There are a lot of me's out there that actually got a ticket on it. And I think that's what changed that. They said, like, no, a lot of people are saying, like, Georgia Tech's going to win this football game.
Now, from a line that saw a lot of movement to moving the football up and down the field, they are seeing that in a great abundance when it comes to Tennessee thus far. Alvin, I will admit it, cue the John Locke from Lost I Was Wrong meme, because prior to the start of the campaign, I wondered from where is all of this excitement and buzz generating as it relates to Tennessee. And oh, ho-hum, after, yes, 2 weeks against lesser than, if you will, opponents. This Volunteers offense, Alvin, it almost looks better with Joey Aguilar at QB rather than Nico. We won't talk about the situation out west, UCLA, because that is a downright embarrassment.
Well, fire the coach. Now,
Deshaun may not be long for the gig.
Deshaun,
he may not be.
No, man, something's wrong out there. But more on that maybe on a different show.
That's right. Here is what we know, though. This weekend, get ready for the big-time affair, because Neyland Stadium is going to be paying witness to Georgia coming into town. Now, I'm not going to say that the Bulldogs proceeded, Alvin, to sleepwalk through their first 2 games, but they kind of proceeded to sleepwalk through their first 2 games. Uninspiring performances there as well. The QB, the new number 1 QB, Gunnar Stockton, oh nice, you've got a completion percentage of 69, and yet you have unleashed a grand total of 10 balls for more than 10 yards traveling through the air. Georgia has been so buttoned up, it's almost been disturbing to a degree, and that's the biggest reason, in my opinion, as to why you look at this one, evaluate it, and it's Georgia in a steady manner, but only favored by 3.5. The Bulldogs, really the team that has consistently dominated Heupel ever since he arrived there? It's interesting.
Yeah, I think 70% of their passes have either been behind the line of scrimmage or within 5 yards.
Yeah.
That's an extension of your running game. Basically.
Pretty much.
Right. And I think Tennessee, who has played pretty well, and that whole quarterback thing, I think everybody was ripe for the fact that we really want to show this kid out here at UCLA what he is missing. But it wasn't like the guy who's playing sucked. You know, you just had this big money dude, and he left. Okay, well, little bit less money dude can play football.
He was supposed to have been the number 1. He was there for the Bruins.
That's what I mean.
He was right there.
Yes. So it's kind of like, it wasn't like chopped liver came to Knoxville. And I think that's important. And I think they really have something to prove to the nation in this game. Boy, you don't play hunches. And I don't want to say this is a hunch. But I'm going to take Tennessee. I'm going to take my 3.5 points.
I like it.
All right, and I think I'll need my 3.5 points. I think Tennessee plays within 3 points, is basically what I'm saying. I think I'll cover with Tennessee. Can Tennessee win that football game? Absolutely. Can Tennessee win that football game if Georgia does not improve on how they play football the first 2 weeks of the season? Absolutely. So I'm going to go with Tennessee. I'm going to play the under on 50.5, though. Georgia has not impressed me on offense, but Georgia has a good defense, and I think that, like I said, I think Tennessee can come within 3 points of Georgia, not if Georgia's got, 35 points or something like that, and I don't think Georgia's going there.
Sure.
I think this is a lower scoring game. I'm going to go in the under on the 50.5, but I'm going to take Tennessee. I'm going to take my 3.5 points.
Okay, some interesting food for thought here when you're talking about Georgia over the course actually of just the last 6 games overall. 1-5 only versus that spread. Now, Tennessee 4-1 against the spread in its last 5. However, when you're talking about the last 6 matchups for the Dogs against the Vols, that would be Georgia 6-0 against the spread. And there is something to be said, Alvin, as we move along here on the College Football Connection on 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, plus 101ESPN.com. Something to be said for the sustained track record of success, gargantuan success at that Kirby Smart has experienced against Josh Heupel. When these two teams, these two blue bloods, match up, collide, and go head-to-head, it's never particularly close. To wit, the last time Tennessee prevailed outright in this matchup, in this rivalry contest, you go all the way back to 2016. Alvin Kamara was running the football for the Vols at that point. So Smart always seems to be able to have the number of Heupel to an extent. I don't necessarily think that changes here, and this is exactly why. Because for Tennessee, if you have any questions entering this contest, it's not about the offense. It's perhaps not about the way in which you feel that you can matriculate that ball down the field against Georgia, at least put points on the board. It's the fact that your two primary cornerbacks, McCoy's been out for the entirety
He
of the
hadn't
season
played.
so far, hasn't even played. And now also you've got questions about Ricky Gibson. He's dealing with an arm injury. So if ever there were a spot for Georgia to frankly open it up, test that secondary, go down the field, it has to be right here. So I'm playing that particular hunch of my own and also saying, yeah, that does mean a lot as far as the track record for this matchup. The previous meetings, Smart doing his thing at just 3.5. Yeah, I'll go with Georgia in this instance to win by basically a touchdown. Bet over under 50.5 for the second consecutive tilt. I'm staying away because I don't have a feel for it. I don't.
Okay. I'll tell you what. You know this. I know this. Let's go back 3, maybe even last year, 2 years, but especially 3, 4, 5 years ago. Georgia was just better than Tennessee was.
Flat out.
Right.
Huge
So I
disparity.
can't. So I can't get on Josh and say like, man, this dude just be whooping your tail, man. Like, well, they were like the national champions, and they did beat Alabama, and they did run the string, and they were good.
That's fair.
Okay. It's not that Georgia team, and I think if you're going to take them out, it has to be on like pretty much this Saturday, and I think that they can make it happen cover-wise this Saturday. You can't play the last 6 games. This is just what's going to happen on Saturday down there in Knoxville.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, Georgia was decidedly better. So I would say, like, man, they somehow they magically found a way to beat us 2 years ago, and we had them down late last year. And I was like, no, it hadn't been that. So, yeah, and Tennessee hasn't been as good.
No.
Georgia was great, and Tennessee was kind of down. And so I think that goes into that lopsidedness over the last half decade. We'll see on Saturday.
And if that mild upset does come to pass, well, boy, would that ever throw just into disarray an already cloudy SEC picture. More on that down the line, because if you're talking about the top rung, the expected heavyweights versus those maybe a rung or two below, a lot of question marks along those lines. But we are now moving on to the Sunshine State, if you will. As Alvin, get ready for it. We have a lot of action taking place down in Florida, South FLA specifically. 3 down, 3 to go as far as the picks go on the CFC here. And for week number 3, through the first 2 weeks of the season, frankly, did anybody in the country, did any team in the land make more noise than South Florida, all the way up to number 18, ranked now in the AP Top 25, courtesy of those back-to-back triumphs over Boise State. Overwhelmed Boise State in week 1.
But how good is Boise State? Now we got to be asking ourselves
and
that.
now maybe we're also asking after week 2, how good is Florida? We'll talk about the Gators here in a second. But South Florida now traveling to Miami, Hard Rock Stadium, 3:30 p.m. And Miami absolutely ran roughshod over its last opponent. But the big signature victory came in week number 1 versus Notre Dame. You understand by now, Alvin, I am all in on that Carson Beck bandwagon. To see this line move from 16.5 to 17.5 in favor of the Canes, over-under at 56.5, I want to give ample credit to South Florida. I want to believe. But boy, that's an enticing number. Your boy's thinking about it. He's thinking about it here.
You thinking about it?
I really am.
I tell you what, when Miami football is doing its thing, and that place is packed like it was against Notre Dame.
Place to be.
People always say, like, man, that is a tough place to play.
Yeah.
The humidity's supposed to be outrageous. There's a chance of rain. It's going to be hot. But now South Florida, I mean, ain't like they from, North Dakota.
They know.
They can deal with it. They know that won't be a factor. I think if it rains, obviously it'll be harder to score points. I tell you what, man, I'm going to give the South Florida Bulls a little bit of play here.
Right on.
I think they come in under 17.5. I think this game will be closer than people think. It's a backyard, kind of brawl. Look, we know that you're pretty good, South Florida. And we know we better be prepared for you because this is a Florida thing. These kids have been playing each other, probably through high school. They've known each other a long time.
For sure.
South Florida says, like, hey, the day and age where you thumbed your nose at us, that's not, they're not feeling like that. But you probably do have kids that like, you know what? Miami didn't offer me a scholarship. South Florida did.
That's right.
I would like to show Miami that, hey, I could play for any team in the country, including yours. So I think South Florida brings that with them. I'm going to leave the over-under alone only because what if it's pouring down rain?
Could be.
And there could be like a stoppage in play because of lightning or something like that. And I just
know.
That always kind of takes me out. That 56.5, I tell you what, if I did play it, I'd probably play the under. but I just don't know. I'm just kind of not sure weather-wise, but I do like South Florida to come in underneath that 17.5.
As you undoubtedly understand by now, I'm wishy-washy when it comes to any and all of these over-under figures for week number 3. A couple of other things to evaluate here, and I'm going to put some respect on the name after not giving him enough love going into that game versus the Broncos in week 0, technically, then heading into week 1. And that would be the quarterback, obviously, Byron Brown. He's been fabulous so far for the Bulls. He's got over 473 yards passing. He can do it on the ground, too. He has surpassed the century mark as far as ground production as well. And then the defense in equal measure, Alvin. Yeah, you weigh the different opponents here. But the fact of the matter is that so far, USF has permitted an average of just 11.5 points per contest. You know that Beck is going to challenge South Florida to the nth degree in this one. And like you, I'm steering clear of the 56.5 number. However, Miami showed me something, a lot of it, in that preliminary nighttime game against Notre Dame. And I think here, if you were flipping it, moving it back, kickoff that is, a few hours into the evening, it would be that much more rabid in South Florida. But 17.5, I was enticed when it was 16.5. And I am fully on the train here for Miami, albeit barely. I could see this one getting maybe 18, 19, I don't know about 20. But because of my belief, my unwavering belief in Carson Beck, I'll go with the Kings.
All right, you had to run to catch the train, but you caught the train.
I did. I did. It was a struggle.
It was a struggle.
But I did it.
The conductor had to hold his hand out and help pull you in, but he pulled you in.
Old orthopedic problems, you know.
Man, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. I think it'll be a good football game. I think South Florida gets there. By the way, South Florida's quarterback, I saw him in a couple of interviews this week. Oh, what a break kid, man.
Yeah.
You know, really, I said, like, there's just some people you've never met in life with those interviews. I said, like, golly, what a nice, respectful, kid. He just seemed like a college football player.
Ambassador, not just for the football program, but the institution. And that's a big reason as to why, honestly, I hope this is a competitive affair. And I hope that you do have a new group of 5 powerhouse of sorts, basically trying to rise there in South Florida.
And you want, and the ones that the non-power 5, the ones that start rising, I find myself pulling for them.
Exactly.
I said, like, I would, I want one of them to have a legitimate shot. Exactly. Say, like, no, you can't keep us out because look at our body of work. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if South Florida beat Miami, now they're at the top of the, all we got to do is win out. Mm-hmm. It might be tough, but if we do, we're in.
Yep. As so often happens, though, we have to return to the stalwarts, right? We have to go elsewhere as it relates to the state of Florida and the Gators. Oh, my. Oh, my.
Yeah. Now, maybe, right. That's, you were saying this. This whole South Florida thing might hinge on, is Florida any good?
It could. Because last week, I'm not saying that we were deceived in any way. That would be entirely too strong a choice of words. But DJ Lagway didn't look good versus the Bulls.
No.
Okay, didn't look good. Had that QBR hovering in the 50s. And if you thought the seat was warm before that 4-game run at the end of 2024 for the head coach in Gainesville, Billy Napier, think about what it's like right now and the gauntlet that ensues after this game versus LSU. So Death Valley tomorrow, Alvin.
Yes.
The other Death Valley, visiting LSU, favored by only, this is interesting to me, 6.5. So that number dropped from 7.5 to 6.5. Rivalry, we get it. The over-under here at Tiger Stadium set at 47.5. LSU hasn't exactly generated a ton of enthusiasm, of optimism, that is, shockingly for the offense in the early portion of the schedule. But two teams really trying to find their respective footing in this one. And by the same token, we understand, as far as staying in the game at minimum, to me, this seems much more important as far as that last ditch. You've got to have it occasion for Billy Napier.
Well, I don't think he can save his job on Saturday if he wins, because it would depend on where they were going, but that would certainly be it. I don't know where he's at if they play a competitive game, but this is not a shot at Brian Kelly, okay, because I love to take him. The reason I'm picking Florida to come within that 6.5 is because Florida could have won against South Florida. They did just enough stupid stuff, They were a first down here, a penalty there from really getting ahead, so South Florida couldn't have come back and won.
But how does that happen at home?
I know it shouldn't. It should not. I hear you. But I'm just thinking that maybe Florida is not as bad as we think. But this will be the one that I'd say, like, what the hell was I thinking? I'm telling you, not to Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia goes down there and walks the dog on Tennessee. I say, like, well, Georgia improved a lot from last week to this week, or okay, I just missed that one. Sure. This will be the one where I ask myself, dude, seriously, you really took Florida in that game? But I am. I think they come within 6.5 points. I think it'll be a closer game that LSU might be ahead and Florida comes back a little bit late and gets close. But I think LSU might have to play from behind just for a little bit in this one. Just for a little bit.
Okay.
Because their offense hadn't been that much. So if Florida could get up 10-7 or something like that, and then maybe they start believing. I think we're going over the 47-5. I'm pretty confident in that. I know kids don't look at games as we got to help the coach out because I like the coach. But this would be an instance where you got to help the coach out, because I'm sure Gainesville is just ablaze with fire Billy Napier, and the only way you're going to stand up is to stand up. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean you have to win, but you got to play a decent football game.
Yeah, you have to be in the thick of it well into the second half.
Into the fourth quarter.
It's going to be a dicey set of circumstances here, I believe, Alvin. Honestly, in light of the offensive struggles we've seen thus far from Lagway, from this offensive unit altogether, and the LSU defense, you basically read my mind when it came to the offense there, much like with respect to Clemson, LSU, the offensive woes so far. What has happened on that side? Nussmeier, obviously, the stalwart at the position at quarterback. You have an array of weapons, and yet the defense so far has been significantly ahead of Kelly's offense, and that is intriguing because entering the season, when we did the SEC preview, for instance, we talked about how in year number 2, okay, you've got playmakers and you have health to commence the campaign. Under Blake Baker, you'd better make considerable strides in that department. Well, we're seeing that, only allowing 44.5 rushing yards to be specific. There is explosiveness. I think you balance this one if you're LSU with Nussmeier at the controls, going down the field, taking some shots, but setting up the running game and giving those totes, giving the touches, the requisite ones to Durham. I don't envision here a scenario, Alvin, in which LSU doesn't win by fewer, I'm not kidding, fewer than 14 points. And this over-under here of 47.5, you may eclipse that one before the end of the third quarter. Florida is in a lot of trouble. I'm telling you, after this one tomorrow, in a lot of trouble.
Well, they have to overachieve in this game based upon what they've done so far. Now, I am saying that. I'm admitting to that. But I just don't want to. My gut feeling was that Florida is not going in here and getting blown out, even though I think Florida could go in here and get blown out. Right. But I really don't think they are. I think they'll find some way to make it a competitive match. I really do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't. It's SEC football. We have SEC football players. We did win 4 games at the end of the year and win our bowl game. Maybe Billy Napier has got to give them the, look, we don't suck, okay? We don't. Never mind South Florida. Pretty good football team. By the time we kick the football off down there in Baton Rouge, we may have a better picture of just how good South Florida is. Yeah. And that, if you're looking up and say, man, South Florida's giving Miami a game up there. Maybe they're not as bad. And then it means maybe we're not as bad. So we'll see.
The second primetime affair that we are previewing, bringing to a close our 6-pack of picks, and then we'll have a little bit of fun for you at the back end of the College Football Connection. Bradford, Bruns, and Alvin Reid moving from LSU and Tiger Stadium to South Bend. It is Marcus Freeman's Fighting Irish hosting, in this instance, Texas A&M. So number 16 versus number 8, even though Alvin, Notre Dame hasn't exactly been sitting back, but definitely stewing. And I think that is a bad sign for the Aggies after losing that one to the Hurricanes down the stretch. And there has been a lot of time, considerable time, in which to make those adjustments. And basically from a game planning standpoint here, Alvin, as Notre Dame is currently favored by 6.5 over-under at 50.5 going into that contest at Notre Dame Stadium. First of all, for as great as C.J. Carr was, for pretty much the entirety of 4 quarters, he made a number of plays versus that Canes defense. In that environment, no less. You didn't even start the game by committing to the run. Jeremiah Love, St. Louis's own, 10 carries, 33 yards. Price wasn't even used that much. And then, as well, You think about the standout at wide receiver from the last 2 weeks of CFP action, last postseason. Where was Jaden Greathouse? So many questions and quizzical decisions from an offensive play calling standpoint for Notre Dame. I can't possibly envision that occurring again. Texas A&M, though, its own questions insofar as Marcel Reid. He had to leave the team's last game as well. You're still trying to build that defense, build that team, that program in the image of Mike Elko. This is as tough as it gets as far as a road environment, but a testament to the program that right now, still just an underdog of 6.5. I think that means something.
I think it means something, too. I'm really torn on this one. I really am. I believe that it's going to be a close game. I think Texas A&M kind of smartened from last year. It's like, man, we could have beat you. And once again, I think Notre Dame prevails. But I'm going to take my 6.5 points.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M is just going to be a rough and tumble football game. And I think if you're going to run Jeremiah Love, that means you're not zapping up and down the field.
And I don't believe that was ever the intent.
That was not the intent. And I think they're going to play a little bit more steamroll football. And I think Texas A&M can hang in a game like that. I don't think Notre Dame, in their mind, they want to light the scoreboard up. But I think they said, like, no, it's going to be a tough football game. Let's go out here and let's win this football game. I think that'll be Marcus Freeman's goal. I think he'll tighten up the defense. Miami's got pretty good offense, but, man, they didn't slow them down, let alone stop them when they needed to in that game.
Al Golden, where are you?
Yeah, right. But they caught up, and they had tied the game. And that was when I thought, well, Miami has the ball, but all Notre Dame has to do is make a punt.
Right.
And Notre Dame has the ball, and a minute and a half left in the game, and all they do is go down the field, kick a field goal, they get out of there with the victory. But they give up, leave themselves no time to come back after the field goal that won the game for Miami. So I think Texas A&M hangs. I'm going to go on the under on this one, too. 50.5? I think we're coming in under that.
Yeah.
And I think the good people in Notre Dame will be loud and proud when the game starts. And I think about midway through the third quarter, I think they'll be a little bit squirmy. I do. That one's going to be tough. But I think Texas A&M. I'm going to take my 6.5. I'm going to take Texas A&M. I'm going to play the under on this one.
And that under figure is very, very intriguing to me in this particular instance because I'm thinking about that philosophy, how I do believe it's going to be strikingly different, like you, for Notre Dame entering this contest. You use the running game as orchestrated by Love, and you really have a host of others, too, capable of being the guy there in the backfield for Notre Dame. Texas A&M trying to take the air out of the football because as much as we think about Texas A&M as well, Alvin, as being a team that is predicated on the defense, on toughness, that sort of mentality, right now through 2 weeks of the season, against the likes of Utah State and so forth, it's been the offense, right? It's been Reid. It's been 953 total yards. They have been going up and down the field. Notre Dame is going to produce a totally different environment there, and I would go in the mid-40s if that. I do think that Notre Dame has enough in the offensive arsenal here to be able to win by a touchdown. It's tricky at 6.5. Give me Notre Dame by a touchdown, though.
All right, and I love this week. I love the 6 games that we're doing because they got a little bit out of me in that I said, like, yeah, some of this might go haywire. But I do believe in kind of like, I'm looking at this. I said, like, man, I didn't, no play on the South Florida Miami game as far as the points were concerned. But I looked at it. I said, like, dude, you got a lot of unders. And I don't know what that's about. But I've said, like, man, week 3, I just see a lot of unders on here. I see a lot of, I'm not saying great defense, but I see a lot of stopped offense. Let's put it that way.
It's still early in the campaign. Defense is ahead of offense as we think. It may change sooner rather than later. But we've wrapped up our formal picks this time around on the College Football Connection. Still, though, a couple of thoughts. I wanted to get a couple of thoughts from you as we enter the weekend. Games we aren't necessarily picking on the College Football Connection, but very enticing contests nonetheless. Now, Illinois absolutely beat the brakes off of Duke a week ago. Right. That was shocking as far as the dominant effort for Illinois.
It took them a while to get going. Right.
So we didn't preview it per se, but 27.5 favored by that Mizzou number, if you will, against Western Michigan. We'll see how a nighttime affair in Champaign shakes out, and we'll get them back on our board for week number 4 on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel. But Alvin, I'm also looking at the backyard brawl. Could be pretty interesting between Pitt and West Virginia. Even Arkansas Ole Miss looks more intriguing now in light of just how great, I guess, Lane Kiffin's bunch didn't look a week ago. Kentucky gave Ole Miss a run, whereas Arkansas so far, we have to get more of the SEC fix here, has looked pretty darn good. I don't know if it sustains. I don't know if it lasts, but that one's interesting. And also, Vanderbilt, South Carolina. We know that's an appetizer of sorts leading into the Columbia versus Columbia showdown next Saturday, but South Carolina now, even at number 11, hasn't exactly been authoritative to this point. Which of those matchups, or maybe even something else out there, is grabbing you the most apart from the usual suspects?
I'm looking at South Carolina because they've been sporadic. Sellers has been that guy for 2 drives, and then, who was he throwing that ball to? Why did he take that sack?
Again, the progressions are not going through them.
They're not, right? It's like they're missing on something, so I think that's the game that, all right, now I'm not saying Vandy's, really got their football program together or anything like that, but that's going to be an interesting game to see. Does South Carolina just take care of business and get ready? Let's go to Columbia. And because if South Carolina, in their mind, they got to say, all right, first of all, we have to beat Vanderbilt. But that game against Missouri, whoever wins that one is put it this way, if either one of them was actually going to make the SEC title game,
that's a launching pad.
It's like you got to win that game. You can't have this other team has a tiebreaker over you. So I'm not saying that they're looking ahead, but I'm saying that they know they got to get their stuff together. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at that South Carolina one. Ole Miss gets Kentucky. Kentucky flusters people. Lexington is a hard place to play in. Commonwealth Stadium, they're kind of all on top of you. And
Stoops does it once in a while. He can still do it.
He can still do it. So I'm not necessarily – the fact that Ole Miss won, okay, I think says a lot about Ole Miss because that looked like one of those games where, man, Ole Miss about to blow their season, with the first conference game. Mm-hmm. But they won. Yeah. So I give them credit.
So flipping it back to last week, that resulted the shocking one. Well, shocking would probably be too strong a word, but the manner in which Vanderbilt scored that crazy number of unanswered points and steamrolled Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
More of a referendum on where the Hokies are right now, or should we be putting Vanderbilt in more of an elevated class after the events of last season, whereas, entering this year, a la Kentucky, we didn't have high aspirations for that team. We didn't.
Yeah, well, but I don't know. Virginia Tech did not look good in that first game.
Wheels are falling off.
Yeah, and, then they just got ran on by Vanderbilt. I think that's Virginia Tech. Mm-hmm. And they're rumbles down there. Blacksburg, Virginia, there's rumbles. They think, lose again. Right. And start the season 0-3. Yeah, exactly. It was nice. Right. We hired the traditional in the image of Coach Virginia Tech. They said, no, we gotta find somebody with some offensive prowess and kind of update this thing because Vanderbilt should not beat you that bad in a football game.
Pavia is ready for this one though. The spotlight, he craves that spotlight.
He craves
Pavia
it.
versus Sellers, that showdown. Could be crazy. I'm looking forward to it in any event.
Right. My man's 28 years old down there at Vanderbilt or whatever. So
sign of the times. That's what we do in 2025 in college football.
Right. We petitioned to play another year. Said, son, ain't you been in college longer than people with masters and PhDs? Well, yeah, but I'm on the football team.
Maybe even until 2037. That's how long they're going to be playing in Ireland. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Keep it going.
Oh, there you go.
More of Kansas State and Iowa State in the years to come. Kansas State, by the way, trying to stay alive against Arizona.
Well, hey, I'm telling you, at Arizona, that's a tough game for K-State.
Heck yeah,
and, they were pointing out during when they were in Ireland, and they're out there having this slugfest. He said, man, the losers got to go back and play a game next week. And then so K-State has to play a very good, group of 5 team in North Dakota. And it takes the last-minute drive, length of the field, touchdown to win that game. Then you get Army. And who wants to deal with, the Veer, the Wishbone, whatever, who wants to deal with that?
Discipline with the Caps. We're tired. We're fatigued.
We're tired. We're beat up. We've been to Ireland. Right. Now, Iowa State slugged it out with Iowa after winning the week before that, and winning in it. They're having a really, really good season.
True.
Beckner's been outstanding, but K-State, man, they left a lot over there in Ireland, I think. Right. Quarterback's family fighting in the streets and carrying on. Right. But anyway, just one note on KU. I am looking at it going on. We play Utah at home. I'm looking at K-State. I'm looking at Iowa State. I'm looking, I'm saying hey, guys, you played a good game against Missouri. Bring that scrap to every game. I think we'll be all right.
In the affirmative. And needless to say, there will be much more in the way of previews regarding that Big 12 conference, even next week as we roll along on the College Football Connection. Alvin, Reid, Bradford, Bruns, as always, we appreciate your consuming our product here on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel and 101ESPN.com. Alvin, my goodness, we almost have a quadrant in the books. Week 4 next week already, but we have to get through a very nice, enticing array of tilts this weekend, and your boy will try to stay as hydrated as possible and come back into the studio here in Creve Coeur and find working condition for next week.
Be careful, man.
Appreciate it. It is going to be a blast, though, regardless. And, guys, also last weekend, a little rough insofar as escaping from Memorial Stadium. You know that it was nightmarish in the best of ways. Instant analysis, though, following Mizzou and Louisiana coming for you tomorrow on 101ESPN.com as well. For Alvin Reid, my name is Bradford Bruns. For Marty Jenkins as well, take care. Enjoy your weekend, St. Louis, and everywhere else out there in the audience. We're coming back at you very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to the College Football Connection podcast on 101 ESPN.